Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Danbury Board of Education meeting. The board welcomes public participation from Danbury residents and asks that speakers please limit their comments to 3 minutes. Speakers may offer objective comments regarding school operations and programs that concern them. The board will not permit any expression of personal complaints or defamatory comments about Board of Ed personnel and students, nor against any person connected with the Danbury public school system. All board members and public participants this evening are respectfully reminded to please speak into your microphones. Is there anyone in the first row this evening that wishes to address the board? Is there anyone in the second row?
Madam Chair, Tom Sadi for the record. I'd just like to understand what the procedure will be tonight from an agenda standpoint of the board discussing and permitting a back and forth regarding the copy of bid contract generically, for lack of a better explanation, and the administrative furlough days. The understanding was that council members, and I only speak for myself, I've been asking questions about this. We were told tonight, as opposed to an ad hoc committee or a workshop with the council, would be the opportunity to have that discussion.
And it is so according to the agenda. I'm sorry that you don't have an agenda in front of you. After we get through with public participation, we will have a discussion on both those topics.
I just want to make sure that will still be open outside of public participation.
Yeah, and yes, it's separate from public participation.
Thank you.
Anyone in the second row who wishes to address the board this evening? Anyone in the third row? Anyone in the fourth row? Is there anyone at all who wishes to address the board this evening in public participation? No? Okay, thank you. Sal? Discussion?
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome to, I guess, the first meeting here before school begins, which will be pretty soon. The first thing I have on the agenda is a discussion update on the copy of the administrative contract. I think the society had pointed out that there were some questions regarding that, and I thought it would give us an opportunity to do it tonight. Namely, moving ahead is important for us. As you know, regarding the copy of bid, the board can't enter into any contractual agreements without going to the town council for their approval. So in order to have it done in a timely fashion, which will be in September, our board meeting takes place after the council meeting, so we go tonight would be the best time to do that. So I'll turn it over to begin with regarding the, well, let's start with the administrative contract, I think, first.
Okay. There's two pieces to this. The first piece is the contract for the year coming up, 2009-2010 school year. As you know, the board approved an agreement with the Danbury School Administrators Association whereby administrators would take 2 unpaid furlough days during the school year, which roughly amounted to a 0.8 of 1% decrease in their pay. So instead of an average 4.51, it was a 3.71. Just some procedural background on how that works. As I discussed with the board previously, we did approach the DSAA about having concession bargaining, formal concession bargaining. There wasn't any interest in a formal bargaining process. The Administrators Union was not required to engage in bargaining. They have a contract. They did, however, choose to engage in off-the-record bargaining. I met with the Administrators Union, with Bob Tabersack and Gladys Cooper, and on one occasion, and followed it up with another meeting, and the result was the result you saw. That was an agreement that was put off the record. It was then put, made off the record. It was put into writing for ratification by both groups, and it was. This is not the kind of thing, and I did confer with the board's counsel, Tom Mooney, on the process, and it was perfectly fine. Since they did not choose to enter into formal bargaining, we could not engage in the formal arbitration process if we did not agree. We couldn't do anything of the sort. If we attempted to do that, they made it clear there would be no discussion. So that's how that ended up. Now, as far as going forward, we are currently in bargaining. Our first bargaining meeting will be, which we just confirmed recently, July 20th. That'll just be an exchange of proposals. I plan on forwarding those to your committee for their approval and Dr. Sal's approval, of course, and then submit them. And then there's another meeting on the 27th of July, and then I believe the next one is September 3rd, if I'm not mistaken. That will be bargaining for the future contract, not for this current year, but for the next year, and hopefully years after that, and perhaps many years as we can reach it, of course.
So that was a one-year contract.
The one right now is a one-year contract. So the concessions I described previously apply to this year's one-year contract, which was, as you know, ordered by the arbitrator after the board refused to ratify the contract. So that's really where it stands from a procedure point of view, and where we are.
For the board's memory, this was an arbitrated agreement to the administrators.
This current year's contract, yes, it is. The 4.51 average increase was ordered by the arbitrator. It was, as you know, it was given to different positions. The award was varied depending on which positions it was. Some positions got higher amounts, some lower. There is a specific list that the arbitrator awarded as to the positions and actually the individual holding that position for this upcoming year. After that, it's open to discussion, and that will happen. And I might point out also, in the upcoming negotiations, members and representative of the city can be invited into those discussions. But to monitor them, absolutely.
I think we were hoping for more in terms of the give backs. There's no question about that. We really did. And what I'm reading across the state, this furlough day seems to be a popular movement because of the way it impacts TRP and what have you on some certain units and all of that. It is what it is at this point, but it is a one-year contract. The times don't seem to be getting too much better.
Well, I should also point out that the way that it was done, and without revealing any specifics, we obviously proposed more than 2 day furlough. I don't want it to sound like that's what our proposal was. It was more than that. But again, we were not in a strong bargaining position, given that they could have just walked away without consequences.
Does anyone from the board have any questions?
No, well, I don't have any questions. I think the key to this, too, is to strengthen the position of the arbitration award.
It's very hard.
And I think you understand pretty much we could ask them to do something at all, but pretty much the award of that arbitration pretty much set the stage for what came afterward. I think those of you familiar with arbitration and the arbitration awards realizes how important it is to hopefully win on that first level. If you lose that, very seldom is it reversed on the next level. I think maybe you can think of one. I've been on the board 4 years, and I can't think of a reversal of an arbitrated award on that some people. We have the same people pretty much sitting, listening to the appeals. What I'm trying to say is, I think we did our best. I just would like to say that some good things came out of that contract. And I think the public is not aware of it. It wasn't a very fair contract listing positions and responsibility. That was why some people got maybe a higher raise than others. For example, we now have a situation where pretty much salary will be in direct proportion to the responsibility of the job. We had a situation before where some directors were making more than elementary principals, for example, and also. I think the public doesn't understand why the jockeying was some people got more than 4.5, why some got less. And I think, I'll be honest with you, I've been on both sides now. And I think the schedule is fair. I think now that when you're bargaining and all that, person above somebody is there to cause about responsibility. The buck stops here, principle. Okay, which did not exist before. So I want you to realize that something good came out of it. And now it's a new ball game, and the arbitration was on that one contract. Now we go back, and it'll be a much better situation, in my opinion.
Council?
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of questions I had, and just direct. Sure.
Be sure it's on.
Can we pass it around that way? That'd be easier. A couple of questions that I had related to not questioning the effort made by board members and human resources and others, and I understand the issue of this being the result of an arbitration after an initial rejection. So really, where the onus fell was on those who had to decide whether they wanted to give back some of what they had. We, members on the council, rejected the teacher's contract. We asked them to go back. I think they went back in good faith. And while they had a less strong bargaining position than the administrators, they did give back actual salary increases, parts of their raises. They gave those percentages back. The first question I have on the issue of furlough days is just mathematically how 2 days out of a year equals 0.8 of 1%, where the state unions gave back a week furlough day, about 5 work days, and that was just under 1% of a 52-week work year.
I think I can answer that question. The administrators obviously make considerably more than most of the average state employee, obviously not the higher level state employees. But when you took the number of their per diem rate, okay, so there's several different categories. We have 52-week employees, we have 225-day administrators, and we have 206-day administrators, and we have 191-day administrators. If you took the per diem rate for those people for the shortened year, okay, and you took how much they actually made per day, it's a significant number. So if you take that and you calculate it times 2, and then take that and compare it to the increase they got, obviously not their whole salary, but the increase they got, that was the number. And actually, just so I can fully develop the number here, it was actually about 1% of their increase, so 4.5 to 3.5. But part of the arrangement had to be, just like it was with the teachers when we went back to the table, is their cost sharing would not go up until the teachers went up. And that was the case when you did the arbitration. It was tied. So that gave back a 0.2 of that 1. So that's why it's 0.8.
So, which then makes more sense mathematically. That it doesn't have anything to do with people's annual salaries. Percentages, it's not about real dollars here, it's about percentages. That was my question. So that's explained that some people are on a 206-day or 225, so they're actually being paid for less than a year.
Correct. They are paid. Teachers obviously have 180 some days. They work longer, but not a full year, except the 52-week people.
I'm talking about the administrators.
Yeah, well, there are a few administrators who are 52-week employees, but just the 50.
So it's based on the fact that the compensation is based on less than a full year of compensation. So if a principal is making at the end of this contract $129,000 or $120,000, and on the outside, would that be generally a 52-week, or would that be a 225-day?
I think that would be closer to a 52-week person, because it's the middle school and high school principal who are 52-week, correct? Yeah, so that salary level, yes, you're talking 52-week person. You're dealing with 115 and downward and start going into the lower years.
So it's an average, then not uniform.
Absolutely, yeah, that's an average.
And the other thing that concerned me about furlough days, and as a state employee, and we're giving back our furlough days, is that at the end of the year, when you give back furlough days, while your pay for that year may have been less, your salary, upon which subsequent raises may be calculated, still is the higher amount. Is that true?
Yes, there's a reason for that, if I could just explain their position. Part of the reason that in my opinion, that the administrators union chose furlough days as opposed to a straight salary decrease is because the Teachers Retirement Board sent out a memo to all of the school districts and said that if you actually reduce salary in a give-back scenario, people who are approaching retirement age, that will be part of their best 3 years. Whereas if you use furlough days, the TRB will still consider it the full salary. So if you have 120,000 employees that get 2 furlough days back, or 118,200, let's say, they'll still get credit for the 120,000 salary. That's why I believe the administrators push so hard for that position.
But the teachers actually gave back a percentage of the respective raises,
Yes,
right?
they did. Yes, absolutely.
And this is not what happened with the administrators.
No.
I just want to make sure people understand that distinction, because when I first heard about it, it seemed that people were sort of equating this, I felt, to what the teachers had done. And I don't think that is actually fair. I think the teachers did a significant amount more, not only in the year in which they're paid, but again, it impacts subsequent raises, also impacts other formularies based on retirement and other compensation.
Yes, and the teachers, yeah, absolutely. The teachers give backs, they weren't really give backs. Remember, we weren't in no other district that I'm aware of did a teachers union come back to the table. Same is true of administrators, by the way. Our administrators union were, just to be fair to them, they were one of the very few that even had this conversation. But comparing apples to apples, the teachers' givebacks were far more significant.
With this contract coming to an end next fiscal year, you mentioned that a representative or somebody from the city could or may participate. Is that something that is decided by the negotiating parties, or is that going to be an absolute, that the city will be in those negotiations?
I don't have the statute.
It's by statute.
Okay.
They're invited to attend.
Right.
The teacher negotiations as well as the administrator. This is the first year that we've had a separate group. They had been a combined group all the years up until last year, but the statute is applicable to both of them. So the couple will receive a fiscal authority receives an invitation, and that they are permitted to attend by statute.
Correct.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, I invited Mr. Cabo to one of the last, leave arbitration meetings, but unfortunately he was not able to make it.
And given that, what kind of input would we just be ex officio monitoring, or would there actually be opportunity for input, substantive conversation, dialogue? I ask that because I've not been part of that type of process before.
My experience is they're there part of the fiscal authority, talking about what we can give and they're not, and also the liaison back to the council, understanding the issues that were presented at the table. So that's why they were permitted to attend as of about 7 years ago. Ultimately, the fiscal authority is responsible for negotiating the contract. So they're part of the conversation that are there.
A question with regard to, going back to what you said, Mr. Superintendent, about this having been the first time where the administrators are separate from the teachers. Have you see a big distinction? I'm not talking about dollars, but in percentages of the salary of the raises for administrators once they were separated off or culled out from the teachers union?
It's hard for me to say, but I will say to you that I was quite surprised that the arbitrated agreement was at the magnitude that it was. And as I reflect on it and look across the stated salaries, I would guess to say that if you had examined the teacher's contract, which included a series of stipends and steps and other things, the administrative salaries, those salaries above the teacher salaries, I think lagged behind to the point where it allowed the arbitrator to make a decision in favor of the teachers, in favor of the administrator over time. I think that's why they were granted that. So yes, they've increased, and I don't know, I'm not inside their head, I couldn't tell you. But they have to look at those salaries and compare it to other districts and for them to get that kind of increase, there had to be a logical, rational reason. And I believe that's what happened.
And just from a procedural standpoint, going into the issue of negotiations going forward, procedurally, the teacher's contract did come to the Common Council. However, the administrator's contract, before it went to arbitration, I don't believe it did, but correct me if I'm wrong, Did it come to the council?
No, it didn't. It was, however, filed with the town clerk, and no one pulled it out within the 30 days.
Then I think it's something, and probably through the council president, that going forward, at least as an individual council person, I don't speak on behalf of the body as a whole, that I'd like to see those come to us, at least so we know during the process when we can have a substantive impact of what's going on as opposed to after the fact. And I don't want to monopolize more time. Thank you.
Mr. Sadi. Hi. How are you tonight?
Very good.
Yeah. I just have to say this to you, to you and everybody's listening. The board was very diligent, and I can't speak for the board, but please, because you can't speak for the council. The board did vote this down because they thought it was too high. You understand?
Absolutely.
All right, so it went to arbitration, which we have no control.
I know that.
So we can't, if we have to pass that and say, yeah, you can get the 4.5% before it could go to you. Do you understand where I'm coming from?
No, I understand, if I might, and that's why I wrote my comments saying that I realized that the issue with the administrators is it was up to them to decide whether or not they wanted to give back what they had. That you did not have authority over that once it came out of arbitration. I think that's what I let out.
No, that's what I'm getting to. You said you wanted to hear the settlement before they went to arbitration. Is that what you're trying to say? We're supposed to go to arbitration, we're out of it. You know that.
I understand
But the
that.
board at the time turned it down, but if we had accepted that, that would have been in your hands, if I'm right.
Yeah.
The council could turn that down or do something with it. But we had already turned it down because we as a board thought it was too high.
I understand that. And what I'm saying is that, and it was said that it was actually on file with the town clerk, even though it's rejected, doesn't mean it's not something that be sent to the council to be reviewed, received and reviewed. We get those all the time. We get departmental reports, that type. That's what I'm talking about.
The other, just one nuance. You're absolutely right. They wouldn't have, the council wouldn't have the opportunity to reject. However, there is a procedure whereby once an arbitrator award comes in, the council could reject it, but then it's a second layer, and then the city pays, and it's always a but you would have had a chance to review it. But it was filed in the future, I imagine.
The second layer arbitration appeal is a procedural matter that's more in your value. I came to learn that it's not listening to facts, it's making sure that all procedures followed.
Right.
And there's never been one overturned, as long as you follow the procedure. So
That's basically.
that's what we were told.
Tom, I saw another councilman raise his hand.
I concur. The only question I have is, prior to the arbitrary decision, how long the administrators gone without a pay raise?
I mean, I think it was, did they get the yeah, because it would have been for this coming year, so they didn't.
So they got the same raises that teachers.
Right, they didn't go without. So the administrators effectively will get their increase this year. The one they got this year was pursuant to the teacher contract.
So in other words, it was based on the same time that the teacher's
Yeah.
contract was?
Yeah.
It was?
As if it had remained, as if they had remained together.
Okay.
Yes.
Does anyone else from council have any questions regarding the administration?